Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and today we are hunting up on Docky Ridge. Decided we'd try something a little bit new. Cycle what ammo I've got in there. So, got a few things, but before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you'll get access to exclusive content, which this month's video, which I will be producing very shortly, it's going to happen this week, it might even happen today, is going to be a look at Orbis VR. That's right, I'm producing my first VR video. I had to make some arrangements because you can't just, it's not as easy to produce a VR video as it is a regular video, because you really have to have two people to do it right. So I'm enlisting the aid of my son, who will act as producer, and we're going to put the video together. And who knows, I might even make that one available to the public so you can see exactly what you get when you become a member over at patreon.com/JulianMcBain. And speaking of VR, that's something I actually want to talk about for a little bit, because I have been able to use my VR for a few weeks now. Once I figured out how to make it operate properly, that I had it for 6 months before I figured that out, because I think part of it was that so when I bought my computer, it was designed to be Oculus ready. But it was also designed to operate with the original Oculus Rift, which had a lot more connections, but the software was built in. And so when you hit the little button that says set up for Oculus, it automatically downloaded the software for the original Oculus, which of course is not the original Rift, which of course does not work with the Rift S. I could never make it work right. I talked to an old classmate of mine, actually, and he suspected that the video card just wasn't going to hold up, even though it said it was Oculus ready. You know, sometimes those things happen, where they set it up for a particular type of system, but then come to find out it actually doesn't really work that way. They did that with the Cry engine, in fact, the engine that this game runs on. The Cry 2 engine was actually designed for a system that hadn't been invented yet, which is why gamers pretty much used it as a trial by fire for their computers to see if they could make it run for years. But having had some time to play around in VR, there are a few things that I've come to realize, and I just kind of want to cover some of them, because I truly think VR is going to become mainstream. It's taking a long time to adopt. I totally get that. VR equipment is still not super cheap. It's the Oculus runs, the Rift S runs about $300, and the Vive I think runs $5 or $6, which is not cheap. And you can't use it on any old system. You have to have a solid performance gaming PC, right? So there is a barrier to entry, and I recognize the fact that there's a barrier to entry. That being said, there are a few things that I see coming down the pipe that I think are going to cause it to go super mainstream. And we're probably talking, it's probably going to take another 10 years. You know, let's be facing it. Gaming as a space is still very young, okay? If it hadn't been for the Atari, destructive Atari Ice Age that pretty much froze the entire industry for 2 years, we could have just been out of video games altogether. And now video games are like the thing. But when it comes to VR, I'm suspecting that by 2030, VR will become far more affordable, assuming we don't inflate ourselves into non-existence with the currency. I'm not going to get into that too much. I have my opinions, TM, about that. But that's what I do for a living, is deal with money. Because I deal with money for a living, whenever you talk about economics, I am going to get opinionated, TM. But the thing is that, like, today I purchased, it was on sale 40% off, a game called Orbis VR. And it's a VR MMORPG. And I can hear all my anime fans screaming, "It's Sword Art!" Well, no. But it's certainly heading in that direction. I will say this. For a space that's not uber developed, it is really well put together. I am impressed by this game, and this is what I am going to make an effort to make my exclusive video in. Or my Patreon video for this month in. The game mechanics seem to function really well. There's definitely a learning curve, but they seem to function well. You actually have to, like, when I went to make a potion, you actually have to add the ingredients to the potion in order to make the potion work. And it takes skill because you can fuck it up. Like, I was putting ingredients in and I didn't do it fast enough and the water got too cold and it fucked up the whole potion. Like, that's a cool game mechanic. It's not just, you know, like, and don't get me wrong, I played World of Warcraft for years. It still has a special place in my heart, even though Blizzard pissed me right the fuck off with the bullshit they're pulling. But the game itself is still awesome, but in it, you get your ingredients, you click a button, you rub your hands together, and you've got potion. And this, you've got to be like, okay, add this, and that causes the water to get to a certain temperature, then you have to add this, and then before that boils down to, or it reduces temperature, then add another one of these, and then one of these, and then scoop it into a jar. Like, that's literally the potion making process. It's like cooking. It's like speed cooking. And I thought that was really cool. And then the quest I'm on now is one that I don't know if it's broken or if I've got to figure it out. I'm going to look it up online after this. In order to go fishing, you have to get a rod and lures, right? And in a lot of games, like in Dark Cloud, which I'm playing right now on my live streams, you have your fishing rod and you can find baits in dungeons, or you have to purchase baits, which are stupid expensive. And if you get them, you can catch fish. In this, you actually have to use pieces to build lures. And I haven't found where the fishing rod is yet. I thought I found the spot and it's not responding. Like I said, I'm gonna look it up online. I'm probably just doing something wrong. That's usually the case, right? But the fact that you actually have to, like, you build the lure, and you actually sit there and you've got a jig with a hook hanging off of it, and you pick the ingredients up off the table, or the mats up off the table, and you apply it to the lure jig, and it creates the lure, and then you can collect the lure off of the jig. That's real life shit there. You're actually doing these things. And then people are running by you, and just like in any MMO, there are actually really helpful people, and then you've got some trolls, but it's all voice chat. Like, it's all voice chat. That kind of blew my mind, and I should have known that it would all be voice chat, but I didn't think about it being voice chat. And so there was someone there talking. I thought they were possibly talking to me, and I'm like, how do I respond to this person? You just fucking talk. The Oculus has a fucking microphone. So it was a unique experience. It was actually really, really cool, and I'm hoping to be able to produce some videos for you guys in it. Some will be Patreon exclusive. I do want to do a couple for just regular for the channel, just so y'all can see it. Depending on how the game goes, I'm going to spend some time in there before I really get into making content for it, because let's be facing it, unless you're deliberately doing a tutorial for it, you don't want to be producing a whole bunch of early MMO things, because you're just freaking bumming around. And yes, the first, I think I played for an hour and a half, and it was about an hour of faffing about. I mean, yeah, you had the kill quest, and you had a fetch quest, but you just figuring out where the fuck you are is a good part of it. And it's a lot different than other games, because you're literally in there. And then oddly enough, the text chat is like way the fuck above your head. Or it's not chat, it's the system. So you actually have to like look up, and that's where you find your XP bar. And it's not like Sword Art, easy to see. You're looking way the fuck up in the sky. And so that was really interesting. But I think this is the direction. I really hope, like, I know that Mindark is working on increasing VR support in Entropia universe. And I'm really hoping to see more. And I'd hope that Virtueverse would do the same, but I know they don't have any plans for it, even though Unreal is actually well set up to support VR. I can see why they wouldn't want to, at least in the short term, because it's not easy programming a game to begin with. And then be like, oh, by the way, everything's got to be virtual fucking reality. Yeah, no, that's hard. So I'm not dissing them at all. But my hope is that our RCEs start moving into the VR space. Because I can totally see that becoming the new thing. In fact, I think it already is becoming the new thing. I am impressed with what VR capability is. And let's be facing it, my system's pretty basic for a VR system. It can't even run all of the functions of the lab the way it should. In fact, one of the mini games in the lab sometimes makes the game crash because I just don't have the video graphics card for it. That's a fact of life. But eventually, we'll get there. I do believe that will be, in the next 10 years, I think the majority of video games that are commonly played will be VR space. Like, we're going to have plenty of these still, right? Entropia Universe isn't going anywhere. I don't want it to go anywhere. I do not want this game to be replaced. I would love games to supplement it, right? That's why I like Virtueverse. Sometimes you're in the mood for this type of gaming. Sometimes you're in the mood for that type of gaming. Both a real cash economy. Sometime I would like to be able to play a real cash economy VR game. I got no problem with that. That doesn't mean it supplants Entropia Universe, because nothing will beat the level of chill Entropia Universe has. Zero things can do that. And part of the reason is because of the type of gameplay it is. You know, currently I talk with my hands a lot. And I'm doing that while playing the game, and I don't have to constantly mash buttons to make it work. In Virtueverse, you can't do that. In Virtueverse, it's a much more active combat style. You have to be able to dodge the fuck out of the way. A damn monster's going to eat you. And sometimes that's what I want to be dealing with, is I want a challenge beyond making sure I'm smart enough to know what I'm facing. And when I want that particular type of challenge, I would play Virtueverse. And when I want this particular type of challenge, I'll play Entropia Universe. Similarly, sometimes you just want to move your body. And virtual reality gives you the opportunity to do that in a video game medium. And I think with the way that our world is changing, the need for VR spaces is going to become more and more prevalent. And let me explain that for a little bit. Just a little bit. See, a lot of people today are urbanized. And I'm not throwing shade. That's literally true. The majority of people in the United States, for instance, live in cities. In fact, the bulk of the U.S. population, roughly 51% of the U.S. population, live in 20 counties across the United States. That's not a very big area for 51% of a population that numbers around 330 million. So think about that for a minute. If so many people are in such a small space, how do they deal? I was visiting a friend up in Burlington, Vermont, just this past Saturday, in fact. That's why I didn't have my video up on time on Sunday. And as I'm looking around, there's all kinds of parks, right? A park here, a park there. They're not huge. Some are only a couple hundred square feet. In fact, it was really cool. I got to walk we walked the labyrinth at the UU Church up there on Church Street. For anyone who's ever been to Burlington, Vermont, I know y'all think all of Vermont is just Burlington. That's not the case. But if you ever go to Burlington, the place to be in Burlington is Church Street, and it's named after the church at the very top of the street. It's a brick walking street marketplace. It's basically, if you ever want to say what is Vermont culture, urban Vermont culture, Church Street is like a cutout of it. Okay. There's rural Vermont culture too, and that's where I'm from. See, I live in a small town. It's not entirely accurate. I live in a town away from the urbanized zones, but within reach of a smaller city. And where I live, there's no need for parks because, well, there's acreage. You know what I'm saying? You know, I can step out my door and go bumming around the woods for a couple hours if I really want to. But you don't have that in the city. And some of these cities are far more congested, like New York. I couldn't, like, I've been through New York. I've never stopped in New York. But looking at maps, there's not a lot of space to roam in New York that isn't concrete. I mean, you've got Central Park. But even then, as big as Central Park is, it's not, for me, it's not what I'm used to. But at the same time, not a lot of people can necessarily go there on a day-to-day basis. But what you can do is you can strap this box to your face. You know, you're hooked up to the internet. And you can log in, and now you've got, it's virtual, but now you've got space. You can roam, you can explore, you can interact with people. You can be somebody else for a while, just like in any MMO. And I think that it feels more authentic. That's what I'm thinking is, like when I played WoW, I began to associate avatars with a human being. And it took some time, but like, when I saw the lady I was dating at the time in the game, I would know it was her, not just from the name, but it felt like there was an emotional connection to the avatar as much as there was to seeing her in real life. And I can totally foresee that being the case in VR, and even possibly making it even more recognizable, not just because of the complexities that VR can offer long term. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't think it's possible. It probably is possible now, but not as possible, just due to bandwidth issues. But I totally see that being a thing. I mean, let's be facing it. One of the best dating apps in the world is World of Warcraft, and I mean that. I do. I know a few people who have started relationships in World of Warcraft, myself included. And in a VR space where you actually move around and you can actually get used to for lack of a better term, when you can get used to the vibe of a person. Because VR actually offers you an opportunity to kind of get used to the way a person moves and the way a person thinks, because when you think a certain way, you move a certain way. Like me, I do a lot of martial arts. I do a lot of fencing. I've done Kenpo in the past. I've done Kendo in the past. I do a lot of shooting sports. Okay, I don't do a lot of shooting sports. I do a fair bit of shooting. I do a fair bit of shooting. And so that comes out in the way I move. Okay? A swords person moves in a certain manner. And like when I was playing Orbis, I was actually attempting to fence the mobs, and I had to get used to the way the specific mechanics of the game worked. Because, newsflash, just because it looks like a sword doesn't mean it works exactly the way a real sword does. It does a fairly good job. I might throw an email at them saying, hey guys, if I stab the opponent, can that hit too? It's okay. Technically, the sword I was using wasn't really designed as a thrusting weapon. It's more of a slashing weapon, but we're not going to get into the mechanics of that. But I noticed that by instinct, the first thing I did is, so when I fence, I usually fence with a sword and a dagger or just a sword. I'm not a shield person. But in a video game, I consistently play a tank. It's what I do, right? I'm a tank. That's my personality. I stand in front and I protect the people in my team. That's the way I've always, well, no, I can't say that's the way I've always been in games. That's the way I've developed over the course of the last few years playing MMOs. So I picked a tank class, and the two choices were Paladin, which is used as a big-ass hammer. Not really a hammer guy. Or Sword and Shield. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I'll be a warrior. Sword and Shield. Not really a shield user, so I could just, you know, tank it up with a sword. Which I should probably do more experimentation with, but I realized I can't parry my opponent with the sword. I'm trying to block his swings, and it doesn't work. Because that's not how the game was designed. So I bit the bullet, and I pulled out the shield, and I was doing a lot better. I didn't die, to my own credit. I never died. But things like that are going to really kind of shape the way that works. And I think that the way I realized as I was fighting, because it felt like it looked like I was holding a real sword, I fought as if I was wielding a real sword. And that's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at. So I think good things are coming. Sorry for the shortness of this particular video, but I've pretty much covered the topic that I wanted to cover. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, a huge shout out to my patrons, Red Kryptonite, Jay Lamberton, Spectrum 3900, Legend of T, and Devin327. Thank you so much for your support. We will see you all in the next one.